All right, why don't we get going? So, before I begin the actual presentation, let me do the thing I'm supposed to do as the board member of CBI. I'm Sean McDonald. I am the treasurer for CBI. A reminder that this session is being recorded. Recorded sessions will be available for review in Attendify through December 31st. Remember that if you are using Attendify for some of the other non-Zoom sessions, that Google Chrome works best. And you should have Zoom for any of the roundtables or discussion and general sessions. The town hall area of Attendify is open, and a board member from CBI is in every session to answer questions directly. And also in Attendify, you can check out our sponsors, network with other attendees and guests, and you can connect directly with our sponsors through the sponsor portal or the Meet Now with certain sponsors that are participating. Bring your questions tonight at 7 o'clock for the membership meeting, 7 Eastern, and all advisors are invited to participate in a special reception tonight at 8 p.m. Be sure to have the Attendify app so you can rate the sessions. This one, Jessica and I, we really love your feedback. And watch your email for a survey after the event has ended. Be sure to keep the conversation going by joining the CBI listserv. You just have to go to askcbi.org, click resources, and then email listserv. And if you're hashtagging, the hashtag for this year's convention is hashtag CBI 2021. All right. All the business is aside. Welcome to our session. Vendors are people too. I'm Sean McDonald. I am the director of Newman Media at Newman University. And I'm very thankful and grateful to be doing this session with my friend, Jessica Shute from Broadcaster General Store. Hi, Jess.
Hello. Hi.
So why don't we tell them a little bit about ourselves, and then we'll get moving.
Okay. Well, I guess Broadcaster's General Store is a family business that was started in 1979, and my grandfather started it, and my dad worked there, and I went to school at Florida State University and got my degree in media production while I worked at the television station. I worked at WFSU TV, and I got my degree in media production, and I never thought that I would be doing broadcast sales because I was always on the production end and always using the equipment. But then I was able to apply my equipment knowledge into sales and sell product at Broadcaster's General Store.
Great. So the purpose of this session is to talk about things that you may not know about your vendors and things that we've learned along the way. The first thing that I want to highlight is the importance of relationships, and that's how we met. Your vendors are more than just people that are going to sell you things. They really can be a strategic partner. When I first met Jessica, it was through my internship at WMMR in Philadelphia. At the time, it was Greater Media, and I was working in the engineering department. I would always hear my boss, Rodney, calling a person named Jessica. And next thing I know, Jessica had a bunch of boxes showing up that I was helping to install things with. It was quite magical. Jessica was called, and usually the next day, something showed up. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can just see this. So when I was finished interning, I became in charge of the radio station at Newman University, and no one here knew anything about radio or television, which was kind of crazy. And they built a studio and didn't have anyone to run it. So I started running the station, and I quickly started to encounter things that were missing or things that weren't done correctly and things that I wanted to do, and no one would really be able to give me an answer. So I called my boss, Rodney, and I said, I have some things that I need to buy, and I don't really know the best way to do it. And he said, call Jessica. So at that point, I got the magic phone number of Jessica Shute from Broadcaster General Store. And I called her and I said, I'm in charge. Now what? And a lot of the vendors can tell you that they've worked with people like me. Not everyone in college media has technical background. Not a lot of people were brought in the engineering department, and they were not, they weren't trained as broadcast engineers. And what's worse, most schools tend to not have a dedicated department that could help with the niche problems that broadcast radio and television have, right? Their IT staff doesn't really like to open up a port. They don't really want to have an external network be able to get in. They just want to just do the bare minimum when it comes to this type of environment. And what was worse was I never had purchasing experiences before. I knew nothing. I didn't know how any of that worked. And the university that I'm at, we've gone through 2 CFOs in the last 15 years. They did things differently. They wanted 3 bids. They wanted all of these different things that I've never encountered before. And I thought that I was, I was just like this lonely little person that didn't know anything. And Jessica says to me, "Oh yeah, now we deal with this all the time." So Jessica, I want this to be an interactive thing, by the way. So if you guys want to jump in with questions or anything, feel free to raise your hand or unmute. How many people like me at the time have you had to deal with as a vendor? Kelly, I know you're from Comrex too. You can definitely jump in. Eva, I know we have a few vendors here. It would be really great to hear the other side of it. But how many people have been like me, Jessica, and said, "I'm in charge and I don't know what to do"?
I mean, I would say I get a phone call every day with someone who isn't sure how they're supposed to do something, or, what's the best way to set up a podcast? Just the majority of my, I guess, emails and phone calls are all about how can we do this better and what are people using? And when you have a vendor that has experience with what people are using and has the vast knowledge, like, well, ESPN uses that, and Sirius XM uses this, and then I guess as a vendor, you see purchase patterns and you see new products and you get vendor training. So you have you always have reps coming in and out of your office, or that we're always doing Zoom calls, but we're continuously educated on vendors' products. So we're just like, I think, a really good resource for people to call that don't, if they don't know what they're doing. And then we can either get them in touch with the manufacturer, like Kelly at Comrex. They've got their tech support team, which is techies@comrex.com. And they are awesome and they help you and they just provide excellent tech support. And having those things at your fingertips and knowing who to call and knowing that the vendor and I mean, even on things that like we didn't even end up selling people, we still try and help, because that's part of building the relationship and forwarding the end user or customer or the department's needs. Like, we're always trying to be a helper.
So one thing I want to bring up, Jessica and I were talking about this prior to the presentation. There is a big difference between a big box style supply house and a small family owned style business or a small supply house. So BGS is located in Florida, Ocala, Florida, and you've been a family run business for 40 years. Yes. Right.
Yeah. Years.
Right. So there are some differences that I would like to highlight for those of you that are similar to me as an advisor. I have found there are times where I get, I can get really great prices from a big name box nationwide group, but what lacks in that is the direct connection to somebody that I could just dial and say, that's my person, right? Working with these smaller vendors, especially the ones that you see at all of the trade shows that we all go to. So a lot of the people that are members of CBI, they go to CBI, they might go to BEA, they might go to NAB in New York. The same vendors that come to our conferences are going to these big spots too, right? They're there. And to me, that was a big eye-opening thing. Like, Jessica knew people at ESPN or ABC or even in television, even though BGS was for a long time very focused on the radio world, but the world has changed in the last 20 years and they cover video too. So what was really eye-opening was the direct connection and the fact that I have their cell phone number. Like I called Jessica to be like, hey, real quick, I need this. All right, cool. I'll overnight it to you right now. File the card on file. Yes. I can't do that with some of the vendors that our university contracts with, or even some of the integrators that we use. I don't really have that connection. Speaking of connections, like vendors know people, and if you ever have gone to the vendor floor, especially at our own CBI conference, go when there's sessions going on and not a lot of people in the showroom. If you watch, the vendors go to each other's tables because they all know each other. Is that, am I wrong, Jessica? Am I wrong, Kelly or Eva?
No,
Right,
that nails
No,
it.
we always, I always make a point of going around all the vendor tables, even if it doesn't exactly relate to our business line. I'm always interested figuring out what they are doing and getting in touch and build a network. Sorry for the background noise.
It's welcomed. It's breaking the ice for me.
Yeah,
Kelly, what were you going to say?
sorry, I budged in.
Kelly, did you want to add to that?
No, just exactly what you said. It's, we do all know each other, and we learn to solve problems together. One quick example, a station goes to another city to do a broadcast and they forgot their power supply at home. Oh, who do I call? We've had people call us and we've hooked them up with power supplies from another station and gotten them on the air. So, just small things like that makes a big difference.
So, the thing that that I've learned over the last 15 years of working in radio and television, that my vendors also love to refer me to other vendor friends of theirs. Right. So I called Jessica. I knew from my experience in commercial radio that I wanted to do I wanted an access, a Comrex access, to do baseball games and remote broadcast, things like that. Then I started getting into the video world, and I was one of the first people. I think my serial number is like in the 100s for the live shots. Right. So like I was referred to Jessica over to Kelly and to Grace and Chris Crump at Comrex and said, look, they're doing this like Think Access, but for video. And I was like, ooh, that's really cool. And it saves me a lot of hassle. I'm a Gen 1 live shot person because of these different connections. Vendors will absolutely leverage their contacts and their connections to get things done for you. And nothing is off the table. At one point, I have called some of my vendors. I think, Jessica, I called you once for this. And I said, I need about 7 mini fridges because we're doing pandemic quarantine spaces. It was last summer and we were moving students back in and we had to designate an entire res hall for quarantine. And we needed to find a bunch of mini fridges. So I called my vendors and
then
Jessica,
I asked, cubic feet do you need?
yeah, that literally is what happened. I said, I need about 8 to 15 micro fridges, and she, without missing a beat, said, what's the cubic feet and what's the BTUs that you need for these different things, right? So it's really crazy, but it's true. When you build a relationship with your vendor, they will go the extra mile for you because several things are at play. It's making you happy, and you're going to continue to build that relationship, but it's also helping to show the flexibility that the vendors are able to do. Like, it's out of their realm. That's okay. We really like working with you. And we know that you'll refer people to us and say, hey, in a pinch, when I needed, a whack amount of mini fridges, they called me and they made it work. Jessica, do you want to expand on that?
That's definitely one of the strong points of smaller businesses and not giant box houses. It's just that we're more flexible and we're able to help on these obscure, weird things. And we're able to do the research. We're able to, and I think about it a lot, that a lot of like the larger companies, they spend, the amount of time that they spend researching something, and then they come to me with, well, this is the product we want to buy. And then I go, well, what are you using it for? And then once they tell me what they're using it for, I'm like, well, why aren't you buying this other product? Because this would suit your needs way better. And you're not gonna have to pay a licensing contract, and you're not have to pay for this. And this is a more cost-effective decision. And we're, I guess, generally, definitely from my end, it's all about how can I make the experience better, and how can I, provide a product and a solution that the customer is going to, in the end game, be happier with. So again, it's all about leveraging who you know, and being able to, supply demo units when they need them, or if something breaks, you're able to, help them, instead of just saying, sorry, call the manufacturer, good luck.
I actually want to open this up to some of our. I want to open this up to some of our CBI members that are here too. Welcome, Lynn. I saw that you came in, but Jason, those of you that are working in college media, do you have people at your university that have the technical knowledge for some of these upgrades when you have to? Maybe you got a decent donation or a grant or something like that. Do you have people at your institution that can help out with the technical aspect, or do you kind of have to call around or email the listserv to find some solutions? Lynn, go ahead.
I will say I'm at a private, small private liberal arts college. No one knows anything here. So sorry to make you choke on your water. I'm sure that other folks get this feeling as well, but our IT department tends to feel like they know how to do everything. So they make us exist like inside this IT bubble where this has to be locked down and this has to be locked down. But we're super unfortunate that we don't have anyone on campus that understands anymore how our radio station works, and why this can't be locked from this, and how this gets installed, and why we need professional sound cards. That's a fun thing. Like, why can't we just get you $20 sound cards? No, we can't just have $20 sound cards. We need to get it from here. So I really love working with vendors who can talk to our IT department too and explain why we need what we need and why we need it. So I'm very happy for vendors, like BGS and others that can help us out. So
Jason, do you want to say something?
Yeah, we're in kind of a little bit different situation. We're also a small liberal arts college in Northeast Ohio, and we have some people in IT that kind of know what's going on, but not all of them. And a lot of times I'll hear from department chairs and other things, I'll hear things like, well, talk to IT, they'll help you out with engineering. And then I go to them, they're like, yeah, we don't have time for that. But they do let me have contractors, which is nice. So I have a contract chief engineer, I have a contract studio tech that helps me out with a lot of that stuff, works with the vendors along with me. So we've been lucky in that aspect that we have some people that we can lean on a little bit. And there are some people in IT that get it, where if we have to explain, hey, we need this, it's generally, okay, you guys know what you're talking about. We'll trust you. Just don't use your entire budget on it, that kind of deal. So I guess we're a little bit lucky in that aspect.
For sure. But something I do want to expand a little bit on that Jessica alluded to, and then Lynn also said a little bit of this. A lot of our vendors, and especially our supply houses, they do have the technical knowledge that most college media professionals may not possess. I came from the engineering world, so I do have innate, skills that I learned in the field, and my background is in IT. So I reported to IT for the last 13 years. I pretty much got my way for anything I wanted, but not everyone is that lucky. Some people, they are given the radio station or the television station as an advisor role for a faculty position, and maybe that's not really their training or their background. So vendors having that technical knowledge really is beneficial for people like those who don't really focus on tech. It allows you to kind of bounce ideas off without, and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I kind of get to call you and bounce it off, and it's kind of like a free consultation, without hiring a contractor.
It is. And then also, I guess another positive thing is that we do know, engineers in all of these areas. So if you actually really did need a contract engineer, we're able to help you find them. And we know all the people that are willing to do contract work, and we know people that do a good job, and we're able to do referrals like that and say, contact these guys because they're going to be able to, meet your scope of work, and they'll be able to help you. And generally that's like on an hourly rate, but it's again another benefit of knowing the area, knowing just people around that are technical.
How often have any of you that are either in college media or some of the vendors, which I'm very grateful more vendors jumped in on this session, so thank you for joining us. How often do you get phone calls saying, I want to do this, but I don't know how? Does something exist, or like, do I get to go file a patent now because I just created something brand new? I've never had that latter part happen. It's always been something has existed. But how often do you, dealing with colleges, would you say that you've had that experience at any of the vendors? Jessica, why don't you start it off?
I'd say, every day it's someone calling saying, I need to do this. How do I do it? Every day I get that phone call. And I always think it's fun because it's always like, okay. And then explaining the whole chain of, okay, well, why are you doing it this way? And, all the interconnects of, what type of video it's feeding or audio, and just, it's always just something fun to, it's like a puzzle that you're putting together.
One thing that we had alluded to, Jessica had mentioned about demo units, and I wanted to expand on that. Sometimes you don't know what you want. There are a lot of options out for everything, right? Like, there are many different types of audio over IP style consoles that are out there now. Some are bigger name brand that, a lot of the commercial radio houses use. Others are smaller ones that you don't really need to do that much with. There's a ton of options out there. And maybe you need to win over your budget officer or your vice president or the dean. What I have found to be really great, and I'm going to use an example of what's happening right now. In Philadelphia, we are preparing with WMMR for the Camp Out for Hunger. And the Camp Out for Hunger is a week-long bananas radio show where we raise food for Phil Abundance. It's the largest single donation drive in the country. And we've been doing it now for 20 plus years. And we love to call and say, listen, it's grown from a tiny tent with a little fire at the Adams Mark Hotel in Ballackinwood to we're in the parking lot of the Wells Fargo Center, and it's a 400 square foot tent. We need some help out there. We will call our vendors. We'll call Jessica and we'll say, hey, we're already thinking about buying this type of stuff anyway. Could you hook us up with some demo units? So yesterday afternoon, Jessica, how many cameras did you send me?
I think like 5.
5 PTZs, a handheld, and we're going to demo them and we're going to use them. And in return for this massively large radio show that happens on the #1 morning show in Philadelphia, BGS is getting a trade value because their logo and their names are being dropped on there, right? Go back to a small scale at the university. I have a CFO that really likes to see comparisons and wants to be sure before he pulls the trigger. The vendors that I call are able to secure me demo units. I can tell you that I have demoed a unit from Comrex when my unit was in the shop. They sent me a replacement one so that I can still do my broadcast. In fact, I borrowed an Access Portable from the demo unit while mine was getting used, and I never told Kelly this, but it went up in a hot air balloon, and it was crazy. But the vendors were able to hook us up with these different demo units. And knowing your budget also really helps, right? When you know what your budget is, many vendors can tell you, all right, well, I know that you want that Axia Fusion console, but your budget doesn't equate to it. However, Jessica, tell us about B stock, because most people don't know to ask about it.
Well, B stock, there's B stock, and we've also come across like a bunch of used things that are very inexpensive. So there's, I guess, again, knowing your vendors and knowing the type of equipment that they can provide, and just asking about B stock, because B stock is usually at least a 10% discount. Some vendors it's 20, some it's 30. And so if you can purchase something that was a show unit that is, obviously, and they send it out with like current firmware and everything, but purchasing demo stock can save you a lot of money. And purchasing some used equipment can save you a real lot of money. So there's all sorts of, I guess, ways to get things cost effectively on small budgets.
One thing that I'd also like to highlight, going back to the connections, right? Vendors know other vendors, and vendors also, as unique as we think we all are, we're just as unique as every other client. And they have a lot of clients. So when there are upgrades happening to radio stations, or maybe the station got sold, right? Maybe the cluster is spinning somebody off. The vendors know that gear might be available. And I have done this before, and I've seen other people do it. They will go back to the vendor that they bought things from and say, hey, format flip, everyone's getting fired or whatever. We're spinning this off, and we need to offload this gear. Could you put it out there to your clientele? That's a really great starting spot for people that might need to be working on a budget. In fact, Jessica, what's the station right now that has all the Axia gear that you just sent an email about?
Oh, that's so Bonneville Radio. I have a bunch of Axia gear from, because they're going with a different manufacturer, and so they're changing their station. So I've got piles of X nodes and consoles, but that's important to me, because that way I guess I can continue to support the consoles for a longer period of time than the vendor might be able to do. And I'm able to supply a console for about a fourth of what you'd pay for it new. And it's gently used, and it's all in great condition. So it's really kind of cool to be able to help out universities and schools that don't quite have that budget on getting state-of-the-art equipment for a fraction of the price. So, and I've also come across, there's also like a lot of new stuff that sometimes people just don't use, like Rodney Bird. He had a bunch of mic nodes just laying around, and I'm like, hey, can I buy those?
So you actively seek things too. So you're constantly in communication, and you would encourage stations to let you know, hey, I've got 6 of these things that I don't use. Do you have a need for them? And you would be willing to buy things depending on what they are.
Buy back, and we usually just issue a credit to the station, so the station then has a credit on their account, which is just kind of a win-win, because that means you're going to come back and spend whatever we gave you with us.
So that to me was mind blowing as well. When I think I did this once, and I said, I bought this thing and I didn't think I was going to use it. It's out of the warranty and return time. And to be told, well, we'll buy it and sell it as used and give you a credit towards that. I had never heard of that before. Being in the IT world, we don't do that. You don't get a credit for an unused computer. You deal with the lease, right? So it was really something that I had never heard of before. And I don't think that a lot of college advisors knew that either. Talk to your vendor. Let them know, I have X amount of things that I didn't need, because they might be able to help you. Either they might buy it directly, or maybe they can help you find someone else to buy it, because we can only do so much with, I love the CBI listserv, but I don't want it to be like Craigslist, right? You know, but these vendors have a Rolodex of people that they could shop it to for you.
Yeah, it's usually easier. I mean, just for reference, if you're looking to move any used equipment, if you're giving me like, if you were to give us like a serial number, the model number of the product, and then just a guesstimate of how much you're looking to get for it, because that way when customers call in, it's like, oh, I have a used audio science card that I don't need, and I want to get $400 for it, but it's a $4,000 card. So, you know, then when someone calls in, I'm able to offer that to them as a solution when they only have the $400 to spend. And then it's just everyone helping everyone instead of just throwing things in a trash can and being like, they're gone. Because I guess I've been trying to stress that to my customers, that there are so many stations that could use this stuff and put it to good use. Why are we filling up landfills unless it's really just broken and just needs to be tossed? We should be giving this to stations that need this. And
Lynn,
that's, I think the whole goal here is to make everyone better.
Lynn, I see your hand raised. And honestly, when Jessica said something about the audio science cards, I immediately thought of you, Lynn, because I think I have one. So we can talk offline.
Yeah, see?
That I don't need.
I actually was thinking of another instance. So when I love the idea of kind of sharing and swapping kind of things, the other stations when they're upgrading, swapping with maybe some stations that don't necessarily have that sort of budget or need maybe some lower priced items. Do you have any experience with swapping or shopping out software programs? Because I will say we recently, over the last year, we upgraded our automation and we owned our automation. We owned those licenses. So we were able to sell them. But I'll say I sold them on Facebook through a group I was on. And it was the most stressful thing ever. So I love this idea, but I was curious for everyone that's around if they ever run into that, if you do anything like that, or if vendors do, you know.
I think that software falls into like kind of a gray area in ways, because most software states that whoever purchased this is the owner of the software. So I know that Telos license codes for like Telos Axia, those aren't, you're not supposed to transfer those. And most likely it wouldn't be a problem, but again, we don't want to do anything that's, you know, not ethical for the vendor, because that's not what we do. But I did recently, I had a customer that bought a broadcast bionic system, and he's just like a podcaster. But he bought this full-blown broadcast bionic system with like 3 computers with automatic switching software, and he's looking to move it because he's decided to go away from doing this, and this is not what he wants to do, which he has like a Blackmagic ATEM switcher and a bunch of other stuff. And in a way, and I just want to help him, because, you know, it sucks that he's stuck with all this software, but he's selling the whole machine with the software on it. And then, so I went to Bionics and I asked them, okay, what do I need to do in order to sell this to someone else to make sure that they would still get the service and the support and all of the things that go along with the software. So I think in that realm, I think that contacting the manufacturer of the software is probably like step one. So that way, you know that you're in good faith, like giving someone a viable product that they're going to be able to kind of transfer to them. Because I think that's like where you just don't want to put someone in that weird spot where they don't really own it. You know, like this vendor might consider that as like stolen property in a way. So software is weird. And I would always just default to ask the vendor first before I sold anything that was something that shouldn't be sold. Maybe it's just, yeah. And
It's good practice to talk to them, right?
yeah, very, very vendor specific.
So, Linda, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I will say I did that. I went to the, the software provider, and they were just able to like relicense it. It was kind of like selling a car, like, hey, you bought it, you own it, you can sell it to someone else, and then they get everything that you had, and then if they want anything additional, they will, become
Right.
a customer and pay
Yeah,
for it. So
they can add like the support contract and like the other, and that's like basically what Bionics did with me, is they're like, okay, well then, they need to buy support for this year, and then we'll make it current. And it's a decent deal. It wasn't terrible. And it just, again, it's helping move things in directions that they'll actually use, and in general, just helping people. And I think that's just a really positive thing for everyone.
So this goes to one of my last points that I had, was that, if you need things in a pinch, a vendor will work with you. And when the vendor makes you look good, the vendor then looks good too, right? And vendors can pull strings, call other vendors and dealers to work on behalf of the client, right? So we're already down to 12 minutes left. So I wanted to get to this one thing. We talked a lot about what vendors can do for you with your financial pieces and the equipment and all, but I want to talk about beyond the sale, right? Yes, the sale ultimately is a great thing for the vendor if they can win your purchase or your business, but you need to think too that your vendors have connections. Your vendors are really, really good at connecting your students to people in the industry. Vendors are willing to help sponsor meaningful programs and meaningful things. So sponsoring great causes like CBI, either as a vendor that Lynn would book in for the vendor room, or sponsoring a session, right? They're very much willing to do that. Broadcaster General Store worked with me when I was the president for College Radio Day, and they sponsored the Spirit of College Radio Day Awards. It's a win-win. The vendor then gets exposure. It elevates the legitimacy of your event and your organization, because you're using the brand power and recognition of the vendor's products, right? So if Comrex is sponsoring this and you're a college media station and the trades see that Comrex is sponsoring CBI, that also legitimizes the organization, right? Because an industry standard that's published all the time, they're putting their name as a backer of your organization. They're also excellent resources to help students learn the next generation of technology, because they can host educational webinars. When JVC started coming out with some new stuff that was all NDI powered, those of you that are in the video world, Jessica was the first one. I didn't even ask. She called me and said, hey, would you guys like to talk to a vendor from JVC and then do a virtual demonstration of the new stuff that they're doing that could, cut the cost of what you're doing at your university if you have to upgrade, but still have the same power of that name brand product, right? So they're really great at helping to do educational resources, especially if they're a supply house, because they work with so many different vendors that they can pull them in. They can be a good connection for your student to get an internship. That's the big one that I want to talk about. I have gone through vendors before and I said, listen, I've got a student who's willing to travel. I called Jessica. She called me and said, listen, Atlanta's looking for somebody to run the video at the Seacrest Foundation studios at their hospital. Do you have a student? Mind blown. At the time, I was like, oh yeah, of course she would know that. She sells all these things to these people. I guess she could probably help me get students into an internship, right? So vendors, Jessica, just a couple examples. You've helped make connections for people before. I think I did one this summer. I said, I have a student that lives in Akron, Ohio, and you gave me 4 names, people at the local ABC affiliate. You gave me somebody for the Browns, right? Like how much do you enjoy connecting students with the people that are in the positions they aspire to?
goes back to a win-win. That's all it is. It's a win-win. You're helping someone get those internships. You're helping a company get a qualified intern that the college advisor obviously thought was good enough to ask, for an internship. I mean, thought that the student was good enough. So you're just putting qualified people together and networking them, and then growing this industry with better people and putting people in places that maybe they wouldn't have been able to get into because they didn't have that connection, or the direct connection or the proper person to contact. So Commerce was looking for an intern. Maybe they just need someone answering their phones, but even answering your phones is just such an important part of a business, and being comfortable talking on the phone and being just exposed to all of these just different areas of the entire business, I think.
Vendors
So.
can help facilitate meaningful conversations for your students by connecting you with their clients at the end of the day, right? Like, think sports broadcasting or major networks. I have some vendor friends that helped create a behind the scenes look at network operations for a major television network. The NHL and the MLB did some sessions for a local chapter of SMPTE to show how the workflow changed and how instant replay and all that stuff had to be done remotely during the first year of COVID-19, right? And it's invaluable because as broadcasters, I think this is the greatest time to be a broadcast person because everything is changing so rapidly, and we're kind of getting to change the standard of how we operate, right? To be able to connect the students to the people that are helping to make those decisions, it's as simple as calling your vendor and saying, hey, I know you supply for ESPN. What are they doing? And would they be willing to talk to the students about how they change to a work from home environment, right? So sometimes it just is asking. You just need to ask, because what's the worst someone could say? No, I don't know anybody. Okay, but at least you asked, right? Relationships matter. And honestly, as an aside, I can tell you, I've grown friendships with my vendors. Like during COVID, Eva from Spinatron would be on the call with the College Radio Day people, not talking about business, just having alcoholic drinks during the pandemic, going, are we ever going to get out of this alive? Right?
Oh my God. Oh my God. No, I have to be kind of blushing.
Well, good thing your camera's off, Eva.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's what I wanted to intersect, if you don't mind me chipping in.
Sure.
It's not just referring from one vendor to the other one, but you can also connect stations with other stations. You learn after years what certain stations' strengths are. They put on certain shows, they put in certain events, or whatever they engage the most. And there comes along another station and asks for advice, and you can immediately connect them and put on shows together. Or if a new station is starting out, it's good to have a local area station where they can go to and ask for certain advice if they are in the same shoes, so to speak. So it doesn't mean you only connect from one vendor to the next, but you can also connect stations together, which is very valuable a lot of the times.
Think of it this way too. We all have our own Rolodex of people and connections, but when most of us are connecting with people in the broadcast industry, not necessarily thinking about our colleagues. There are people on the West Coast that I did not know about until I talked to my vendors, and they said, have you checked out that person's station? They're doing something similar. Maybe because I know that they have a Comrex access, maybe you two can like do a simulcast or something once in a while, right? So then I was learning ways to expand my programming by talking to a vendor, because instead of going to another person to buy something with, they said, well, this person's a really great college radio station. You two I think you have a lot of synergy. Maybe we can connect and something great could come out of that. And that absolutely has happened.
Yeah, that's what I meant, that you can benefit, mutual beneficial relationship with other stations. I think, that works.
So one last thing, when it comes to the relationships and building friendships out of them, and I really have built really great friendships with some of my vendors, as I'm sure some of you have as well. They do understand when business is business, and they get, they might not be able to beat that price from somebody else. And no matter how much of a PowerPoint presentation you give to your budget officer, why you think we should do it this way, they do understand business is business, and they're not going to be upset that someone overruled you, right? On the flip side of that, I will say I am willing to pay a little bit more to go with someone that couldn't, beat a big name box house price, because I know that I'm getting someone that's going to respond to my phone call or email immediately. And that if I have a problem, they're not going to give me tech support for the product that's, acting up. They're going to give me solutions, and they're going to connect me to their person directly. Right. So, I am willing to pay a little bit more for better service, knowing that I can probably have this resolved in 48 hours, as opposed to filing a claim, talking to support, paying extra to talk to support, because that's a thing. Even though you're in the warranty, you want to talk to somebody, sorry, you didn't get our pro care package, and it's 3:00, so it's lunchtime. Like, I know we all have experienced that before. So I am sometimes willing to pay a little bit more. Lynn agrees, I will pay for better customer service and someone to answer my call and help me out, more than just saving a couple $100 and making the CFO happy. So the last point I wanted to open it up is, are there any questions, or if anyone wants to share a vendor relationship, or vendors who are on the session, what else should college advisors know about your world that maybe we don't? Let's go with that one first.
Well,
Okay.
Jessica, then Eva, then Kelly.
okay. Well, I don't know, I was talking to Kelly about this earlier. I thought it was interesting. I have a friend, his name's Addison, and he built his high school radio station. But this entire time, Addison was our interface that we were speaking to. And I just thought he was just, probably, a younger guy, but I didn't really realize how young Addison was. But it was really cool that his station allowed him to do some of the negotiations and some of the contact with, and the majority of the contact with the vendor. And I thought that was like a really cool experience, which I think made him like more employable and confident. And like, I thought it was just really neat that they put that in his hands to call and to help design and figure out these systems, and gave him a lot of really good skills. So that was just like one of my really interesting experiences. And then when I met him, finally, like, he was, I think, like 20 years old at that point. So I'd known him over the phone for 4 years. And I realized that he's actually a 20-year-old kid. And I was just like, okay, neat. I didn't realize, but he's, brilliant, obviously, but it was quite shocking but I think I guess that was just a very good teaching tool, is get your students involved with calling, get your students involved with asking questions, and with your vendors, and with, we want to do this, how do we do it? And then let them walk through that process with vendors. And, it's just, I think that's just like a really good experience.
I agree. Eva, you want to say something?
Yeah, you asked the way that what should advisors know about vendors. As you say in the title of this session, that we are people too. That's a good start, and we are not there at the conference to undermine advisors' authority. We try to help them. So please feel free to stop at our table, not look at us as their enemy who might question their authority. It's not true, because we try to help. We are in this business in order to make things happen for stations, not to trick stations or advisors or GMs or any person who has some authority. So don't necessarily consider vendors as enemies that you have to shell out some money for the service. It's not always about the money. I don't know, stations who use Spinitron, they know it very well. It's the money is not the central driving force for us, but helping station is what keeps us going. It's not, you know, the money pays the bills, but it's not what drives often vendors. It's the being part of the community and helping the individual people and individual stations and whole community all together. So you know, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Eva. Kelly, you want to say anything that we should know about your world as a vendor?
Pretty much everything has been said, but you know, really don't hesitate to reach out to your vendors and use those resources. Here at Comrex, we still answer the phone, which surprises a lot of people. You don't go to voicemail, and that's pretty much it. You know, thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. Thank you. And by the way, Kelly was not planned. I was talking to Jessica last night doing our PowerPoint slides, and she said, I could probably get a couple of vendors to be here too, besides me. And I was like, yes, do it. This is the whole point of this. So thank you everybody for coming and being a part of this. Kelsey, welcome to being a new college radio advisor. And I'm really glad that this session was helpful for you. Please feel free to reach out to us. All right. So Jessica at bgs.cc. I'm treasurer at askcbi.org. This session is recorded, so you will be able to go back and watch it through December 31st. But please reach out to us directly, have a conversation on the listserv, and we can also move it off list depending on what it is. But use who you have. Connections matter, relationships matter, and that was the point of today. So thank you, Jessica, for joining me. Thank you, Kelly and Eva, for stopping in too. Have a great day, everyone. The next session is at 1:30, so be sure to go check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.